Hey everybody, so this is the first video on how to make a wood baseball bat. As you can tell, I am amazing when it comes to creating YouTube videos, so bear with me. First thing you're going to need is a lathe. So you can see here, this is my lathe, it's in blue. You could just get a lathe from basically anywhere as long as it's long enough. I got this off Amazon. That's going to be a theme. I got this on Amazon. At the time I bought it, it was around 200 bucks or so. Um, Make sure your lathe is long enough to fit the billet. The billet is the piece of wood that you're going to be spinning on here. So usually billets, when you are going to be using them on the lathe, anywhere between 34 and 36 inches. That way you can cut it down to what you're trying to get for your bat. So most people are going to make bats between 32 inches and maybe 34 inches or so. So just make sure it's big enough. The other thing you're going to need, and this is something you're going to do over time, is you're going to need measurements for the bat that you're making. Um, I just started doing this from friends whenever they broke bats. I would just take the model numbers, I'd write them down in my little book that I'm going to be picking up in a second in this video. There it is. And just wrote down the different specifications for each bat so I could just keep remaking them. Are there better ways of doing this? Yeah. But I'm cheap and lazy. So, with that said, you have that out while you're doing your work and you can get going. The next thing you're going to need, and this is something very important, especially for safety, get yourself a mask of some sort. Get something that's not going to let those little particles of wood get into your face because yeah, you may not even notice that you're getting those fine pieces of wood whenever you're sanding. So make sure you get a nice strong mask that can prevent that from getting into your lungs. Goggles, gloves, pencil, pretty straightforward stuff. Make sure you get those. The gloves going to help out a lot, especially when you're sanding. So make sure you get those things. Pencil, obviously, going to write a lot of stuff down. These next two tools, hammer, pretty straightforward. And this is the weird one. This is a centering tool. I'm going to have a little video on this in a second. This is what you're going to use. Again, it's a nice little cheap way of centering your billets so that you can put them onto your lathe like so. You draw with the pencil. I'll show you how to do that in a second. And this way you can have it mostly centered when it goes in the lathe. The further off it is, the more it's going to wobble. And, that can be dangerous, but also it's annoying. So this tool is a good one to get. And how do you put the holes into the end of the wood? There's a little dimple tool. You just get one of those too. Again, most of the stuff's pretty cheap. You get it at Home Depot or on Amazon. The next one is a caliper. This is the caliper I've been using because I don't feel like using the ones that you're going to see on other videos. It does the same job, and it has a ruler directly on it so you can measure. A ruler, measuring tape. And those are pretty straightforward tools that you're going to need for this. Now we're going to move on to the chisels, and this is where it gets a little more fun. So the first one here is this is a 5/8 shear scraper. If I know what I'm doing, I will add this into the video so that way you can just see a list of these tools. This one's going to be important, as you'll see, because when you cut, make sure you're using it this way. This is going to allow you to cut the depth of the wood. In other words, if you need your barrel to be 2.5 inches, you're going to cut down 2.5 inches using this tool, and then you're going to measure it using the caliper. That's about it. All right, so this just makes life easy because you can just cut straight down. The next tool you're going to be using, which I'm going to pick up in a second here, is this is a 1-inch roughing gouge. And this is going to help you shave the wood down. Again, I'm going to have a video on this one. And then the last one's going to be a 1-inch skew chisel. And that 1-inch skew chisel that I have not picked up yet. And here it comes. Again, I'm great at making these videos, huh? This is going to be used to round your edges, so the end of your barrel and the knob. You don't have to get these exact tools, but again, those are the only real three you need. This box over here has more in it, but I don't really use them. And then one of the last things you're going to need is sandpaper. I have 60 grit and 400 grit. The difference, as I pause real quick, the 60 grit, if you're familiar with sandpaper, the lower the number, the more damage it's going to do. Damage isn't the best word to use here, but I think you get the point. That's the more it's going to be able to take off the wood. So the lower the grit, the more it's going to be able to take off. The problem is it's not going to be very fine. So if you only use this sandpaper, it will work and it'll get most of, it'll smooth the wood out pretty nicely, but it's going to be pretty rough. So the 400 is nice because it's going to help make the wood very smooth when you're done with it. So you get packs of these, Home Depot, another good place, Lowe's, somewhere, anywhere. Um, and these are the tools that I've been using to make my bats. Again, there's probably better ways of doing this, but if you want to do it cheap and do it by hand, this has been a fun way for me to do this. So those are the tools that you're going to need. You will need a few more tools that are not on here. Some sort of saw to cut the end of the wood. That'll make more sense in a later video. I've been using oil-based polyurethane to finish my bats. That way, it has a nice finish at the end of it, and it's less likely to dry out. Uh, get some gloves for that. Disposable paintbrushes, and then if you want to get the cupping tool, so there is a bit that you can get for your drill that will help cup the end of the bat, and a drill press if you want to do that. You can also do it on a lathe. That's another, you can look that up on your own. But anyways, that's the generic stuff you're going to use. So if you have any questions on the tools you're going to need, let me know. I will put a list of these in the video.